Daring to do the impossible in our purpose pursuit is the series we are discussing. It's quite an interesting and a long series, and I've started challenging myself. Yesterday I asked myself, if I look back in 2021, I don't see any dare that I did. And that's a problem, by the way, and it's getting to me. And if I look back in 2022, it is May 2022, I cannot see a significant level of daring that I did. Hell, if you look a cross-section of my life since I was born, the dares were those days when I was living with my parents and they had to take me to hospital because I hit my head on the wall and cracked my skull, things like that. But then as I grew older, I became safe, risk-averse. And now I dare little. But I'm discussing and I'm saying that if I am going to succeed, I've got to be someone who dares. And I think my consolation is the fact that I am consistent. So it's kind of replacing the dare. But at some point in time, we need to have a dare going on in our lives. Let us look at one of the things that we risk when we go on a dare. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
Well, you know it by now that probably we'll never live this life safe. It's foolhardy to tiptoe through life thinking that we're going to escape all the minefields, of course metaphorically, all the heartaches, all the setbacks, all the crises that can come in our lives. It is foolhardy to think that we will not suffer a measure of despair, a measure of disillusionment, a measure of uncertainty in our lives. And these negative things that I'm mentioning are things that are the ingredients of a dare. On one end, by the way, yesterday we looked at the analogy of the pendulum. You realize that there is one side and then there is the other side. God made night and day, darkness and light. You cannot just think that there is darkness all along. There will always be light even when darkness is available and darkness beckons. But if you look at a dare, for the most part, what keeps us from daring are this knowledge of the negatives, the darkness. And we talked about these things, been talking about them, and today we'll look at the last one. The first one is loss of reputation. When you dare, your reputation is on the line. The Bible says a name is better than riches, and therefore you want to protect your name so very much you don't dare. The second thing is rejection. We are social beings. We want to belong, and if you go on a dare, you risk being rejected, and therefore people do not dare because they want to belong. The third thing we looked at is shame and embarrassment, which is connected to the rejection we were talking about. Shame, embarrassment, and the imposter syndrome. You feel like if I go, I'm going to go on a dare, I'll be embarrassed. I'll make a fool of myself. And therefore, you'd rather remain with your feelings intact and not risk shame. You don't want to go through the shame. The fourth thing we talked about yesterday was the big one, failure. You will fail every time you make a dare, or for the most part it is in the probability. The probability of failing is always going to be there when you and I make a dare, and therefore we don't want to fail. We don't want to risk our reputation. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be embarrassed, so we don't dare. And also today we don't dare because generally we might lose resources. Now, losing resources is a very integral part. In fact, it's a very real part of a dare. Because when you're daring, you're not daring in a vacuum. You have invisible resources that you're using, and you have visible, tangible resources that you are using when you go on a dare. And therefore, people are looking like, I only have this. If I throw it away, or if I put it in the ring, or if I put it in the basket, if I put it in an investment, I'm just using that as an example, what will I have left with? And so we have this tendency to hold back on what we have, to be misers of our own lives, that we don't want to dare. Daring is gonna cost me, it's gonna cost you. It might cost you money. It might cost you your car. It might cost you an asset, whatever it is. But daring might cost you. There's some kind of dares where you need to. Let me give you an example. A preacher, some years back, writes a book that he thinks is a bestseller, and he attempts to get it published by traditional publishing. He knocks on the doors of these publishers, and each and every one of them turns him and his wife away and tell him, nah, it's not, he can't do nothing, and so on. The man was left with one choice. He had to go and withdraw every single penny that he had on his savings and self-publish the book. That was a dare, and that cost him his resources. It cost him his money. But he was willing enough to say, I can lose this. And I know when we teach people about investments, you know what we tell people? We normally tell people, please invest what you are willing to lose. In other words, if you lose it, no big deal. Invest what you're willing to lose. If you lose it, you will not feel a pinch. That's not a dare at all. What these guys did, what this preacher did, was invest all his savings. He was not willing to lose that saving, but he invested it all in self-publishing his book. It became an instant hit. T.D. Jakes, Woman Thou Art Loosed. How many years down the line? It became a sensational book that sold millions upon millions of copies. And it became a movie. It was out of a series of messages. This man had an opportunity not to dare, so that he can safeguard his savings. And I know this one is motivational, and it's scoffed at by very many people, because we are motivating people to do the impossible and all that stuff. That's what happens on a daily basis in life, even if there is no motivational speaker to tell you and to guide you. But if this guy had a binary of options, dare or don't. When we dare, there is something that is going to be at stake, and some of that thing is our resources. We might lose our resources. You might go on a dare. Of course, a caveat must be there. Don't dare by putting your money in a mushroom business, or mushroom is actually okay, quail eggs business, or telex free, or forex trading, and things that you are not passionate about, things that are not your purpose. T.D. Jakes dared where his purpose mattered. He believed that his purpose was to empower the woman who's been ostracized, who's been in situations where she needed help. And therefore, what did he do? He created that book, wrote that book, and believed that this is a resource that is going to help. And he dared bet on his own resources. I don't know what your purpose in life this day is. I don't know what you've discovered to be something that matters to you. It matters to you. You've got to do it. And there is no other option but to dare. Help has not come, but you need to dare. And there is a resource at stake. Let me tell you this. You might lose that resource, but at least you tried. You dared. There are very many advantages even if you dared and you lost that resource. Number one, it firms up the idea that you are sold and committed to this process of pursuing that purpose to its logical conclusion. It means that this is what you've stood up to identify yourself with and to be identified with. And number two, what we spoke about yesterday, if you lost it, the failure that comes out of it, there are very many things that you will learn through the process. It is not flat out. You will be better off once you've dared than worse off before you did. That's exactly the point. So far much better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure of losing your resources, than take rank with those poor spirits who neither suffer nor enjoy much, because they live in the great twilight that neither knows victory nor defeat. That's the point of a dare. You might lose your resources that you betted. And I'm not talking about betting. I'm not talking about sports betting. I'm not talking about this betting that people normally do. You go and you bet your school fees on Man United being, champions. How in the world would that happen? That is not purpose. You bet your resources on your purpose. It's a dare. You might lose, but again, you might win greatly. Tomorrow we continue discussing this subject of daring the impossible in your purpose pursuit. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.